Well, China has accused the US of undermining their relationship and violating a series of agreements after meeting with Taiwan last week. The top US and Taiwanese diplomats held a public lunch meeting in France on Friday to discuss security and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific. China is demanding that America cease any similar interaction in the future. Joining me now live is Adrian Brown, our Asia correspondent, live from Hong Kong. Great to see you, Adrian. Surely the US would have known that such a public meeting would have been provocative, so did they do it on purpose?
Well, it's interesting that just a few days ago, Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, gave an interview to the CBS network in which he said that China was acting more aggressively overseas and was becoming more authoritarian at home. He said that the United States does not want to keep China down, does not want to stop China's rise, but he also served notice that the United States would be prepared to stand up to China if and when it had to. Now, people say that the one area where that is possible, not likely, but possible, is Taiwan. That is the democratic island that is just 160 kilometres off the Chinese coast. It is where the nationalist forces fled China after the end of the Civil War more than 70 years ago. And ever since then, China has continued to regard Taiwan as part of its territory, while Taiwan gives the illusion of still being separate. Now, there is a theory that perhaps China wants to test the United States because the United States is in many ways obligated to defend Taiwan if it were attacked. But it's a very ambiguous agreement, a very ambiguous treaty. And many military analysts feel that China would like to test that. But would the current Chinese leader, in his current mood, really want to make a move towards Taiwan? There's no doubt that if Taiwan was to come back into the fold, then President Xi Jinping would be regarded as the greatest Chinese leader since Mao Zedong. But there's been no, indication in the media in China that that is going to be China's intention. There is one other area why Taiwan is so strategic at the moment, and that is it is a center for semiconductors. One of the world's wealthiest semiconductor producers is in Taiwan, and there is currently a shortage of semiconductors around the world, which are used in, the Internet of Things, in electric vehicles, driverless cars, that sort of thing. And China is 20 years behind in that technology. So semiconductors are to, Taiwan what oil is to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, indeed it is. I find China and Taiwan very different culturally. I went there 5 years ago and it was clear that Taiwanese were very patriotic and really like to see that separation. They are, I guess, quite, not overtly, but they appreciate the strength of the United States. But I guess the question comes down to this, Adrian. If China was to provoke Taiwan, in any kind of way, do you think a Biden administration would step in?
Well, that's exactly the point. That's the big question. Nobody really knows. But the problem that China's leaders have is that, for more than 70 years, Taiwan has, in a sense, been out of the fold. And what you're seeing developing in Taiwan, and you may have noticed it when you were there, Laura, is that there is much more of a Taiwan identity now, there's sort of a Hong Kong identity. Indeed. And that's what worries China's leaders, the idea that on its periphery, there are people having a stronger sense of their identity, which isn't Chinese, it's Taiwanese, it's Hong Kong.
Yeah, but the Taiwanese are always looking over their shoulders at China. They know the strength of China, and I think indeed the risk there. I like the comparison you just put forward between China and Hong Kong as well. And every week that we talk, you seem to suggest or put something forward that, there are slight changes in the way that the democracy is working in Hong Kong. Has there been any development in that fake news proposal or anything else in Hong Kong of late?
Well, yes, actually, just in the last few days, the squeeze on the main local broadcaster here, RTHK, has been intensifying. There has been a wholesale shake-up at the top of this local broadcaster. Journalists have been removed from their post, and the broadcaster is now going so far as to remove programs that are on YouTube. It's saying that anything that's over more than 12 months old is going to be deleted. Now, that is because, of course, on YouTube, there are plenty of reminders of the protests of 2019, and RTHK wants to prevent people around the world seeing that. So yes, the campaign against local media is intensifying. They haven't got round to the international media yet, but you're seeing more and more local news organizations now directly controlled by mainland concerns. And there's a big question mark now over the South China Morning Post, the paper of record here in Hong Kong, that at the moment, at least, is controlled by Jack Ma, China's richest man. But he's backing away now from his day-to-day involvement in his company. So we're all waiting to see who the South China Morning Post might be sold to.
Yeah, indeed. That will be big news whenever that does happen. But Adrian, just finally before we let you go, putting COVID and being a journalist aside, how has life changed for you in Hong Kong over the last year?
Well, I've just had my second vaccination, so I'm fully vaccinated now.
Congratulations. We are a long way from doing that here.
And what is so frustrating, I think, here in Hong Kong is that we have more vaccinations than we need, yet less than 14% of the population have had their first jab, and only 7%, like me, have had 2 jabs. So there is a real problem here that people simply aren't getting vaccinated. The Hong Kong government, in spite of its sort of authoritarian bent, has so far not been able to encourage more and more people to get, vaccinated. And if you are the boss of a big company here in Hong Kong, this is your regional headquarters, let's say, you can't travel at the moment around the region because, people don't want to allow people from Hong Kong to go to their countries because they haven't been fully vaccinated. And yet Hong Kong is talking about trying to establish an air bubble with Australia, with New Zealand. That's just not going to happen while you have so few people here who've been vaccinated and yet have the opportunity to be vaccinated and haven't.
Well, you look good. You look like you've got no symptoms, so you're a good poster boy for the vaccination. Adrian, always a pleasure. We'll speak soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.